I got into Joe's work in 2019. I had started the year off with a concussion, and that kind of spiraled off a bunch of other health issues later on, a lot of digestive issues. I was diagnosed with candida, with SIBO, with adrenal disorders, hormonal issues, a lot of different things. And I spent the majority of 2019, just kind of trying to figure out what my diagnoses were and how to get better. So I spent, started 2019 like that with the concussion in January, recovered from that in like a month or two, and then the digestive disorder started around like March or April. And I, spent the majority of that year going to like Western hospitals, Western doctors. Didn't really like that approach, and I didn't really want to take antidepressants or any of the pills that they were giving me. So I decided to try a natural approach. So I went to naturopaths, I went to functional medicine doctors, and I was given my diagnoses that way, and I was told that I had to go on these different diets. I was told I had a lot of food allergies, a lot of food sensitivities, leaky gut, all the list of things that was basically wrong with me at the time. And I was very suggestible. I was looking for answers, and so I accepted, believed, and surrendered to those diagnoses and just kind of gave my power away. And so I started all these protocols, went on different diets, eliminated all the things that I was supposedly allergic to at the time. And I spent most of the year like that, and it went on from one restrictive diet to the next because the diets still weren't working, and I was constantly in this fight or flight state. I was always kind of panicking about the next meal I was going to eat, if that meal was going to digest well in my stomach. And so I spent the rest of the year kind of like that, and eventually got to a really restrictive diet, which was like soup only diet. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, that was all I was eating, and I was miserable. Like I'm a big foodie, I love food, so having to go on so many restrictions to the point where you're eating the same meal over and over again just felt like hell to me. I was like, oh, I miss food, I really want to get back, so I was desperate to try anything. And I was working with a nutritionist at the time. She told me about this guy, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and how she'd been to an advanced retreat, how people had walked off the stage that had like stage 4 cancer and were completely healed in a week. People were walking off wheelchairs, and my analytical mind was like, yeah, right. I'd probably heard of the guy if he was that famous. So I resisted for a really long time to even starting Joe's work. So I kept kind of going down the path of everything that I was doing, the diets, all that stuff. And it wasn't until the end of the year where I was on the birth control pill, and I got off the pill, and as soon as I'd gotten off, all of my hormones just kind of went crazy, and some of the symptoms started coming back. And at that point I hit a stage of desperation where I was like, what, I'm willing to try anything. So I bought Joe's course, and over the course of the holidays I was just listening to his progressive, understanding the concepts and building that model of understanding. And then I started to do the meditations, and as I started to do the meditations, I started to realize that I had developed all of these belief systems about food and about the things that I could have and that I couldn't have based on my diagnoses. So I had like beliefs that, I couldn't eat sugar, I couldn't have gluten, I couldn't have dairy, that I was sick, and I had developed all these belief systems. And so one by one I started to figure out what those belief systems about food were, and I would write them down on a piece of paper. And then on the other side, I would write down the new belief that I wanted to believe, and that was that I was healthy, that I could eat those things. I remember I had a belief that was like, I can eat anything and everything I want and just enjoy life and, be healthy again. And so I would do the changing beliefs and perceptions meditation every day. And that one I think had a really long breath in it too. And I remember I started doing the breath, and at first I was like, what is it? I didn't quite understand it. And then eventually I started to just go at it with such a willpower because I wanted to heal so badly. And I kind of really came, with that level of determination, and every day just showed up, started to change my beliefs about food one by one. And then would get up from my meditations, focusing on being that person that could eat those foods. And so after a period of 2 weeks of doing his meditations, I was on like 15 or 20 different supplements at the time. So I was able to get off all of my supplements, and my sleep was getting better, my anxiety was a lot less, and then I started to do the blessing of the energy center meditations, and I started to really bless those energy centers, the lower ones where the stomach, the stomach was, and then also just like opening up my heart, focusing on my adrenals, and just really blessing each one of those energy centers. And as I started to do that, I started to really embody those emotions of my future a lot more. And anytime I would go into eating a meal, my mind would kind of create all these thoughts about, you can't have this, you're allergic to this. And I would close my eyes and I would just, imagine that vision of my future, and just start to fall in love with that, embody those emotions. And once I started to feel those emotions, then I would open my eyes and I would eat the meal. And so I went on like that, and I slowly started reintroducing food after 2 weeks of doing Joe's meditations. Around week 6 or 7, I was able to start really opening up that diet and those food groups a lot more. I kept showing up, did his meditation sometimes twice a day. And finally, when I got around like 3 months of doing it, I noticed that there was like something different in my body. Like I remember I had one meditation where it was almost like there was this energy that just shot up to my head, and I kind of felt like I was going to pass out. And I just accepted and surrendered to that, trusted in the unknown. And as soon as I came out of that, I knew something within me had shifted. And so I decided to make a reservation at my favorite pasta place. It was like gluten and dairy and all the things that, I'd been scared to try. And at that point, I knew that I could have the meal and that I was totally healed and I was totally fine. And so I started to eat all the meals and finally did the lab testing, and symptomatically everything had gone away. So I thought to myself, I'm good, I'm healed. But what I didn't realize at the time was that although I had overcome my body, I hadn't fully overcome my environment. And it wasn't until I came to Joe's retreat in February and I was taken out of my environment that I started to realize some of those fears and limitations about food. The fear of getting sick again was coming up. And so here at the Barcelo, they have an amazing buffet and abundance of food, and I was really scared because I didn't have a kitchen, I didn't have my things in the regular environment that I could cook with, and so I was really challenged when I came here, and I realized that I had that fear of food and also a fear of the pandemic. Like the fear of getting sick showed itself in so many different ways for me, from getting sick again to not eating food to getting COVID at the event. And on the first day, I remember when my body was really trying to unseat me, I became conscious of those fears, and I just was like, you know what, this week I just want to fully immerse myself and go all in and just overcome these fears. And I had a meditation, I think it was the 3rd day of the retreat, where I was just doing the breath with such a willpower. And at one point I started to see there was like this crack that started to like form in my body, and there was light coming out of that crack. And I just, first I was a little scared of it, and then I just surrendered to it a little bit more, and the crack started to get bigger. And at one point there was like, I felt like I had reached up, even though I was sitting in the meditation, I'd reached up and I almost like pulled this skin suit that I was wearing off. And it was like a skin suit that had all the limiting beliefs, the fears, all of those things that were holding me back. And I ripped it off, and I was just a being of light, and I felt so much love and so much wholeness. And when I got up from the meditation, I knew that I had left that skin suit, down in my meditation spot, and I really felt like I got up as a new person and that I had let go of all those fears. And so I was super happy, and I was like, oh, I'm good, I'm done, I finally overcame myself. And then I went to the advanced follow-up last month in Marco Island as well, and I came back from that. And one of the things I realized I still had left was every time I would bump my head somewhere, automatically my body would kind of go into this fear-based response, because it would start to think about the concussion and how I hit my head. And so just a couple weeks ago, I was getting ready to go somewhere, and I'd done my morning meditation, and I was opening the door to leave, and the AC was strong, so it kind of shut the door, and I was already on my way out to the door, and my head hit the concrete wall really hard. And immediately all those thoughts started coming up for me. And I thought, you know what, I'm here for, this is happening for a reason. This is the universe trying to nudge me to show me this is an area that you still haven't fully overcome yourself. So I remember sitting on the bed and just, you know, really working with my body and overcoming my body and just not going back to the past, not going back to those emotions, those belief systems that I had, those fears. I sat with my body for about 2 hours and canceled my plans the rest of the day and was like, this is what I'm going to focus on overcoming. Just doing the breath work, and at one point I started to feel like I had just felt so much love in my heart, like I had fully transmuted that fear. And I felt very lightheaded, so I just ended up resting and sleeping the rest of that day. And after that, you know, in that moment also, I realized that everything that I had gone through, it was my entire health journey and all the things that I had gone through, it was a blessing. Like I felt so much love and joy to have gone through that entire experience, because I realized that that was my initiation. That was my that was what brought me to this moment and the person that I am. And that just, you know, I felt so much love from the divine, and I remember closing my eyes and just feeling so much gratitude for that experience. Like I had transmuted those emotions, and I no longer saw myself as a victim. I saw myself as just a being of light, and I felt so thankful to have had those experiences because it brought me to this moment. And then in the meditation today, I just felt a lot of those feelings again of just so much love, so much gratitude for that experience. And I heard the divine say, you know, you had to go through that so you could become the person that you are today. So for that, I'm really, really thankful.